In this video, I want to give you some inputs that ought to substantially elevate your landscape and nature photography. But first, let's start out yesterday. So the autumn mornings have really started now, and don't ask about the cap or the jacket or the scarf, because I completely forgot all my stuff back home in Copenhagen, and I'm in the middle part of Jutland right now. So I had to do with what my parents had in their closet. But as I said, the autumn mornings have really started now, and super cold. I think we got the first frost of the season. However, I've come out to this little lake, and as you can see, the mist is coming up and out of the lake, and we have this little island here with these beautiful birch trees getting hit by the first light of the day. Absolutely gorgeous. Compositionally, I put on the long lens, zoomed in, f11 to get both the trees and the background in focus. ISO 100 gives me a shutter speed right now of 1/5 of a second, and then I'm basically just waiting for the mist on the lake to be optimal. The first input or tip I'll give you to master, insofar one can actually master nature and landscape photography, is to give your photos that extra little nudge up by including animals in your photos. As you can see, a few ducks swam into my composition, which I think really added that extra spice to it. Although not classic wildlife photography, animals just make your photos much more alive. Go figure why. The animals do not have to work as subjects, as in this photo I got last year. I often use them as side characters, either for scale or as mentioned to add that extra spice. And here is another beautiful little scene. I'm really getting bursted by the sun right now, but with the long lens I can zoom into this scene here, and I have a couple of small trees, and then I have the ducks here in the foreground having the sun coming in, just lighting up the entire scene of morning mist right here. Since I'm shooting into such a bright scene, I can actually come away with f16, and then I'm at ISO 200, gives me a shutter speed of 1/400th of a second. So in case there's some birds flying into the scene, I should be able to catch them. But right now I'm just focusing on getting these ducks here, because it looks absolutely phenomenal. So much morning mood in one scene. And the ducks are just perfect in there. And those two small trees there in the background and the morning mist, and yes. This is exactly what you want from a morning like this at a beautiful forest lake. Absolutely gorgeous. The next tip is twofold. Firstly, try to work in series of photos. For example, photos with the same theme or the same editing style. This will give you both direction, style, and a project to work towards. Secondly, when editing the photos, you can use one of the photos as your base photo and just edit the new one in the same style. This makes you work a bit faster, but also trains your skill in analyzing a photo and applying the optimal editing as to make it look like the other. So I've come to another place than where I were yesterday, and I've climbed the hill. It's a really tall hill. I think I've gone up like 100 meters or so, which is quite a lot, quite substantially here in Denmark. But I've come up here because I have like more or less a 360 degrees view all the way around me, and it's a beautiful cold morning just like yesterday, and I have some fog, some inversions laying around in the landscapes. There's a little bit more on one side than on the other. However, if we look in this direction here, you can see I have some fog out here, and I have a little line of trees right there that I'm including in a very simple composition that looks more or less like this. I do plan to cut off the lower part of the photo here. And the next tip is, as I've shown actually in the two first photos too, to use a long lens. Now, long lenses, telephotos like 70mm plus are fantastic for landscape photography. It's not just wide angles that work well for landscape photography. Sometimes they actually don't work well in a case like this. So long lenses are good at zooming in, simplifying your photos, removing all that clutter. But it's also important that you remember that you need some depth in your photos. Think about foreground, midground, background. Else the photos can still turn out to be relatively flat. So in this case right here, I'm using, of course, the line of trees that works great as the anchor point of the photo due to the repetition of the trees. And then I have the fog in the midground, and then I have the background forest. And in this way, it's a simple photo, but nevertheless, I still have a good amount of depth in the photo. Depth is one of those concepts of landscape photography that can be a little hard to grasp, so it's a compositional tool I added to my ebook, which is all about composition in landscape photography. Along with depth, I cover topics like contrast, visual flow, balance, scale, and negative space, to mention a few. In my second ebook, I cover topics such as separation, geometry, patterns, and placements of the elements of your scene. Both ebooks have loads of 5-star reviews, so thanks to all of you who buys and rates the ebooks. It is what makes this channel run. If you haven't got the ebooks yourself, you can always start with the first. There are all the relevant links in the description of the video. So the next input or tip is to use backlighting to your benefit. No matter if you're doing landscape photography, nature photography in general, wildlife photography, backlighting is almost always preferable. Imagine light coming in, silhouetting your animal, hitting the fur, really outlining it, or when the light comes through the trees, outlining the leaves, lighting them up from behind, lighting fog and mist up from behind, lighting inversions up from behind. Anything lit from behind usually just looks better. Even if you look in movies, they use backlighting so much. And if you can't get backlighting specifically, then at the very least side lighting, and try to angle it so at the very least the side lighting is a little bit angled, so you get a little bit of backlighting. Right now I've come over to another viewpoint, looking basically in the other direction, and we have the sunrise coming up over here, and there is a little bit of backlit inversion right there, but I can't really get it from this angle here due through the tree. But I am photographing out here over this lowland part, and I really have like some trees coming up here. The idea was to have the sun light up this place from the side. I don't think it's going to happen because right now there are a few too many clouds covering up the sun. But nevertheless, it's still a beautiful photo. It is still the same concept as before, using the long lens, just showing the layers, letting the fog do the work for me, and I just get like, yeah, layers upon layers upon layers, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. But definitely look into backlighting. You've already seen my first 2 photos. Those were backlit / side lit, and it just works like almost each time. I also got these 2 other photos which I shot in a direction about 90 degrees to the 2 previous. Although still side lit, I do have the sunrise in my back, so the light interacts with the landscape and atmosphere in a completely other way. It's easy to see how these 2 photos are much flatter in the expression, even though I've jacked up the contrast quite a bit in post-processing. If you so far enjoy this video, I'd highly appreciate a like, and let me know down in the comments which one of the many photos I'm going to present in this video is your favorite. Well, obviously when you have seen the video. I have goosebumps now. The sun is coming out and it works exactly as I hoped it would. So it's just like, what? So beautiful. It's actually, in this context, it's the first time I am photographing an inversion above my local forests, getting the first light of the day. Like, I have photographed an inversion before, actually this summer, but that was a completely other place. But these here are my local woodlands from my childhood home, and it's the first time I'm photographing an inversion like this, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to focus a little bit more on photographing rather than talking to you, but here are the photos I'm getting from this session. Side light, backlight, light. So the next tip or input is simply just to set yourself free. And the best way to set yourself free is by using a drone. Right now the conditions are just ridiculous. There's just coming more and more fog. The inversion is spreading. So I have put up the drone, as you can see here, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm using my drone almost all the time, and it is just like, it's a camera on wings. So if I am in a location where the conditions are gorgeous, however, I cannot find a composition, then usually it's a good idea to put up the drone, and it does the job for me. I can always fly it around. I can easily get from A to B, of course, well within the rules and the law of the drones, but nevertheless, it can just give me such beautiful photos from the air. So if you really want to literally elevate your landscape photography, a drone comes highly recommended. So this morning is just going bonkers. Like, this is by far the best inversion I've ever experienced in Denmark. So beautiful, and it's exactly what I hoped for. Arguably right now it's actually a little bit too foggy, because as you can see here, I'm on top of the hill still and you can hardly see anything, but you can see, like, you know, the distant forests here, the distant hills. So I'm actually considering right now to just walk down in to the fog, because it's not coming exactly all the way up here. I get a little bit of sunbeams in the trees right here, but not enough really to get like a strong photo. But oh my god, this is wow. So the next step is to definitely do your due diligence in regard to, I'm down here by the lake and super minimal scene. You can see how the fog is evaporating now. I have some swans out here and I have this cluster of trees here in the background. Maybe, just maybe, I can get something like the shot I got this spring with some birds in front and the background forest with a lot of fog. I need to move. I'll get back to you in a moment. So back to the tip in regard to doing your due diligence when it comes to research. So this specific location, I researched it in the spring, and I knew that once I had explored the hill up here and I walked down to this area and looked around, I instantly knew that obviously this place is gorgeous. We have some beautiful dead trees, have a lake, and I simply just knew based on my experience that there's a good possibility to get beautiful morning fog here during autumn. And no matter if where the fog would be, if it was a little bit higher and not at the ground level, I could always climb the hill and photograph from there. Obviously there would also be a chance of getting an inversion like I got today, but I could also decide to get down here. So there are so many different possibilities for beautiful landscape and nature photography in this specific location. So absolutely be sure to research your local area. This is only half an hour's drive from where my parents live, where I'm staying right now. And I have of course done a whole lot of research in the middle part of Jutland over time. So I'm pretty confident on where I can go and photograph if there is a chance of fog. And I usually always have a plan B or even a plan C if there's no fog where I actually wanted to go. So all the way here, I actually came by places that I've already researched where there were fog, but I had in mind that this place here ought to also work. So I could always drive back to those places if this one didn't have fog, but it had, so it's all good. So in that way, absolutely do your due diligence in regard to location scouting and researching, and then just wait for optimal conditions. So right now I'm working on a little composition out here on the lake, and I'm just getting super blinded by the sun, as you have probably been seeing. So out here, this little thingy sticking out of the water, and then the background old oak tree here works really well in this zoomed in vertical composition. I have to focus tag it even though I'm shooting an f16, so I'm focus tagging where I get one shot here for this little plant and then one shot for the oak tree here in the background. Looks gorgeous. Super simple, super minimalist, yet super atmospheric. If you want to learn how I edit my photos, such as focus stacking, controlling light and atmosphere, working with luminosity masks, learning to use the editing programs and the important tools, my philosophy around editing, and much more, for you, my lovely YouTube audience, you can get 15% off by enrolling in my huge Photoshop for landscape photographers post-processing course. I've designed the course to be easy to follow and build it up progressively, so we start with the basic stuff and advance, making you more and more competent as a post-processor. The coupon code and the link to the course is in the description of the video. I'm not even sure how much time has passed since I made the last recording, but this is ridiculous. The fog just keeps lingering. So the sun rose at 7 and right now it is 9:45. And I think it's because I'm at the lake and the small amount of wind there is coming towards me. So it's probably pushing the fog towards me. Right now I am filming and photographing some swans out here, and I've just been like hammering off like for the past half hour in this area here, taking so many minimalist, beautiful photos, getting utterly blinded, but it's so beautiful this morning. So worth getting out for this. If you have followed my channel for a while, you've probably heard me saying this, but when it comes to composition and making art-worthy photos, one thing that almost always works is to simplify your scene. Obviously, try only to have those few elements in there that you need. In addition, think of it like this. If you want to hang a photo on your wall, you do not want it to be overcomplicated, too full of information, and of course thereby confusing. If you avoid overcomplicating your photos, you will also avoid cluttering the room where you are hanging the print. Simplifying your photos, yet still filling the frame with what is needed, is also a topic I cover in my ebooks. So some of my favorite photos of all time has actually been taken outside of the golden hour, but often with a lot of atmosphere, and fog, mist, so forth can easily linger way out of the golden hour. Just like today, it just keeps sticking around, which is very nice. And I'm fairly certain it was because of what I've just said, that how the fog is being blown towards me from the lake. Right now I'm photographing these beautiful tall mainly dead trees over here. And using again the long lens, just zooming in. Here is a little bit more abstract version where I'm just zoomed in. And then I've also got a few photos where I've zoomed a little bit more out. I'm shooting at ISO 100, f16 to get everything in focus. That gives me a shutter speed right now of 1/60th of a second. I'm still using 2-second shutter delay as to get everything tack sharp. This is like borderline stupid. I'm getting so many photos and it will take me forever to get through it. I'm not even sure how long this video is going to be. I hope you enjoy it because there's so much editing with this. Oh yeah, so right now probably one of the best photos of the morning for sure. I'm photographing out here in this direction, bird, and there's these two beautiful trees that are kind of dead, and then I have a couple of birds in front of it of them, and it's just so atmospheric and beautiful and minimal, and the fog just continues. It's 20 minutes past 10 now. It's like ridiculous. But I'm benefiting from it. Yeah, another tip obviously is to just linger around as long as there's photo opportunities. There's no reason to go home. Well, I'm really hungry by now, but yeah, simply just use the conditions when you have them. Use them to your advantage. And just wait around in the good conditions and see if something awesome appears. This is definitely a shot I'll be happy about for a very long time. Here it is. What a morning this was. I got so many photos. I actually think this is the single video where I've presented the most photos ever. I hope these inputs and tips will help you to elevate and master your nature and landscape photography. As always, I'd highly appreciate a like. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to share it with your friends. Let me know down in the comments which one of all the photos is your favorite. And be sure to check out the links in the description for the ebooks, editing course and the newsletter.